Oh, hello there. Yes, well, we made it to that special day of the week that my ancestors fought for. Yes, indeed. Yes, the day that we name after the Roman god Saturn. Very important, I think. Whatever happened to him? Where do the old gods go? Asked Terry Pratchett. Anyway, today I thought we'd have a bit of a kind of update on certain people. Well, or at least certain people's ideas. You may recall that Rupert Lowe, MP, was going to sue somebody because, nasty black man had called him a racist. But the problem with that, of course, was that various people did point out that, as indeed I did, that he'd invited people to call him a racist. He didn't care. And he did appear to care when somebody who wasn't white called him that, which of course inevitably brought forward an avalanche of people who, well, were both white and did call him racist. And, well, we haven't heard anything else, so we can safely assume that that one's been consigned to the dustbin of history. However, of course, whenever you draw attention to yourself with things like that, people then do go on and tend to notice other things about you. It's no wonder that various right-wingers in various parts of the world are very keen on the control of information, because sometimes they find things out about you that aren't very good. Yes, speaking of which, of course, we do have the non-surprising information coming out of America that one of one of Elon Musk's young bucks, yes, indeed, has had to walk away from his very, very, very specialised job, gaining access to, well, information he shouldn't really had. Yes, Marco Iles, yes, had to quit because turned out that, oddly enough, he was a nasty racist. Not really quite sure why these days with Elon that would be a particular negative. One would have thought that in his inner circle that would be a bit of a must. But that got me thinking to the whole thing about, our glorious friends who may or may not call themselves fascists, may or may not get cross about the notion that you might call them a Nazi. I don't think you should call them a Nazi unless they're anti-Semitic. I mean, if they just are fascists, then, well, that's fine. But you see, the problem with Marco Iles that I have is that, well, number one, it's not a very, very Anglo-Saxon name, is it? And if we look at him, well, yes, not really very, very special genetics there. And I'm sorry, but if you're going to call yourself Marco Iles, and indeed probably have a name which has its roots in, well, let's be generous, shall we, southeastern Europe, but not the kind of Italian side, more the kind of, well, the other bits, you know what I mean, the dodgy bits, yeah. And then go across to America with their glorious mixtures of DNA there, then actually, probably, if you've got a slightly light skin, I would imagine it's the best thing you've got going for you. It's certainly not brains, ever, is it? Ever, 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 ever. Because the generic thing about your average workaday fascist is that they really have to puff themselves up because they are very special. It's always a he as well, isn't it? I mean, you do meet female racists, but they're a bit far and few between. It's always a bloke who has, well, issues, just vague issues about things. And this is why the Americans, of course, are so very keen on the notion that they're Anglo-Saxon. It's one of the reasons why you had that recent spate of, well, of course we're Anglo-Saxons, and of course it's history stuff over here about a year ago. It's because, of course, that genetics doesn't work on nice straight lines, whereby you're just a white person, which makes you a genius, and you're not a white person, in which case you're not a genius, unless you're Asian, in which case you're good at maths. Or something, which is anyway what Marco Iles was going on about, because apparently he was cross at, well, Indian people being good at maths, which they all are, obviously. They're no good at cooking. Oh no, they're good at cooking curries and maths. There we go. Unless they're not Indian, in which case I think they're still good at maths, but whatever their national cuisine is. You see how easy this is? I could carry on all day talking rubbish, which is exactly what they do. But the thing about them, of course, is they do get very, very cross then if you point out, well, how about the fact that despite the fact they have such wonderful skin colour, that they're not actually very bright. And, I mean, after they've got round to informing you about various things about the Third Reich and putting up 3 clown emojis because you're absolutely wrong about the economics they obviously haven't read anything about, then what What they then get cross about is when you pointing out that they have a very, very low level of education and can't use commas. It's a really classic one, isn't it? Or indeed, really hold up any form of argument at all. To which, of course, the default mode is, well, I'll put up 3 clown emojis and that way I've owned the libs. But they do get cross, and they will draw the wagons into a circle and, fight off these nasty, nasty types from the outside. And in the, well, even more blue corner, I would give you the gorgeous and pouting and indeed very feisty Sophie Corcoran, who, having left the Conservative Party, finally, having posted for a long period of time about how disgusted she was about how obnoxious they were, has now joined Reform. Hint, Sophie, I don't think it's going to be much different. But I was intrigued yesterday because she was posting stuff up strongly suggesting that the particular individual in Peterborough that she was campaigning for was involved in some very, very dodgy things. I think Sophie should tell all. Yes, I know. She's a bit of a racist, isn't she? Yes. But when it comes down to a fight, there's the old saying, about boxers. Yes, always bet on the neurodivergent ginger girl. That's my tip for that one. Anyway, I really think she should spill the beans on that. But just generally speaking, whenever you hear people use the word like retard, they're never a Labour voter, are they? Yeah, never a member of the Green Party, never one of those horrible Marxists. No, they're always something else, aren't they? And they're always people that magically fail somehow along the line, and therefore, like any schoolyard bully, which is what they are, they have to feel good about themselves by making you feel small, which, unfortunately, with someone like me, can't be done. I am quite small, always been small, always had to, use my brains against, well, them. And they really hate that. They really hate that. And they're going to carry on hating it. And if we're talking about these types of people, of course, inevitably, we do come circling all the way back to those glorious hunks of DNA that are the Reform Party, and indeed the glorious hunk of DNA that is Elon Musk. We'll hear a lot more about these types of things, but of course, they're always the people who manage to accumulate all the wealth, so I guess I am the foolish one. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think I'll have won more in life than they have, because, well, I'm just not a nasty bigot. Anyway, do have a glorious day of Saturn, traditionally hot water and agriculture day. Yes, you see, I do look these things up, and it's always intriguing what you find. Enjoy.